what time is it now, Paddy? He said to me, what time, what time? Well, I said I wouldn't have time, but I said it has to be, so it's after 5, it could be 6. Oh no, not at all, said Dad. Said, you must be joking. He says, about 4:30. He says, do you see the sun where it is? And he kept him going for another while, you know, and it was long by 6 o'clock.
You got good value out of it.
Oh yeah. Great man to work too. So he was always demonstrating how tough he was. Like he turned up his sleeves in the middle of winter and get stuck in, you know.
Yeah.
Pipe he always going.
Sure. Yeah. And I suppose of the older generation, if you like, that are long gone, like him, Tom Barnard, you would have known him as well.
Oh yeah, Tom there, he had garden going on. You could buy strawberries and gooseberries and all sorts of stuff off him there, up and behind yours at your place.
Yeah.
And I remember Mr. Lauder as well.
Right.
He was I don't know what he looked after, but he was up there in Langford. He had a job obviously up there in the yard, and he remained on there. I don't know what way he had to live.
I think he was farm steward for.
He probably was at the end of the Fowler times,
yeah.
and remained there. Yeah. And I'm sure Tom Barnard would be employed with him as well.
Yeah.
You know.
He was a butler.
Is that right? Yeah.
Do you know any more that were employed up there for Langford?
Well, Tom Neil was Tom Neil's father would be. They were living up there in the yard because Tom Neil told me about he could feel the heat for days after he'd feel the heat coming from the old rules when you'd be a quarter of a mile away, you know, the heat of the
after the fire.
After, yeah.
That's 1921.
Yeah.
My God, right.
Yeah.
And Tom remembered that.
Oh yeah.
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 I think he might have been about 9 at the time. I think he might have been the same as my father, 1910.
I'm sure, yeah.
So
I used to hear my father too talking about he was in Ferry House races when 1916 happened, and he said somebody in the crowd was aware that something was going on, but he said he could see it very black in the skyline, looking in the third Dublin. So they were home. It was the next day they knew about what happened, you know. Right. And I think some of the British Army came in trucks down around where the Ferry House races was, whether they were looking for somebody but they were there. More of them than should be, do you know, whatever they were after. That was 1916, of course. But, oh yeah.
Any other people around the village, your earliest memories, can you remember any?
Pat Hanna, then was a successful man at the Greyhounds. He was there. His wife ran a shop there as well. And yeah. There was Ned Guggerty then at the other end of the village, and the wife ran they had the post office there, and Ned used to do a little bit of farming, and he had a few cows there, and a bit of land down the Raw War. And
did he have a mill of some sort?
He had a mill.
Right.
He'd grind corn there for the farmers around.
Right.
He'd bring a few bags of oats and barley, and they'd grind it for you.
Right.
And he'd have a book and the price, the whole lot would be down the little book. And then when he gave up that, I think the Elliots above in Lahar took over the mill then. They ran it for years as well after that.
Right, right.
Christy Elliott and Patsy, they ran it there on their time.
Right. Mary Kelly, you probably know.
And Mary Kelly, I remember her with her lovely garden. And I served mass. She'd have a station in the house. I served mass there for her, and I served mass around the same time in Shaw's. Shaw's had a mass in the house,
Right.
and Guggerty is in the post office.
Yeah.
Served mass there as well, and yeah, that comes to mind. You get a great big fry up for your breakfast after serving the
right.
mass.
Right.
Yeah, a few bob for yourself.
Ah, you did well.
Yeah.
Where Diocese is now, your earliest memory of what was there?
Well, that was the. The police were there. The Garda Síochána were there. I think they moved from there into the barracks. Yeah, and then this family Riley's from Cavan. I think they'd be the first owner or something after it was the barracks, and they built a shop onto it there.
Right.
And they were there for a few years, 2 or 3 years, and they moved on. They sold it, and that Billy Lynch came there then. Ran a successful shop there for years.
The stores in your early memories. Who was in the stores? Who can you remember there?
Well, Ben Holmes.
He was dead before I was born, so I never knew him.
No, I'd be there. He was running that, and I remember his 2 daughters lived there, Cozy and Sheila, and the papers then they give the Cozy would have the papers on the Sunday morning. She'd be inside the window with them, and she'd give you out the paper and probably cigarettes if you wanted them there, as long as you didn't delay her. And yeah, my earliest memory of that shop was me going back to when we were in Clondougan, and it was around the Christmas time, and this priest who happened to be in the house, I think he used to call occasionally Father Stewart, and he was a young curate at the time. And there was a girl who used to come to Butler's. She was from London. Sheila Trett was her name, and she'd be a bit older than me. She'd be old enough to have sense. But I remember we were sitting in the back of the car, and he said, "I'm going to bring you down, you get sweets or something." We were in the back of the car, but then he says, "You wouldn't know that you want to see Santi," but I wanted to go home. But he might have said where he was bringing me, but I was nervous. But she was saying, "Oh no, you're all right, you know." And he brought us to Holmes's, and he bought me this bag of sweets.
Oh.
I forget the name of them now, but there no paper on them. They were round. But yeah, and he then brought me home again, you know. And I was in an awful state when he put the wind up me, you know. But the girl, she had sense enough. She was older than me.
Ah.
She knew that there was nothing, that everything was all right. But that'd be, there wasn't many cars that time now, when that happened.
What can you remember about that, cars in the village?
Oh,
And roughly what year would that be, Paddy?
sure, it'd be, I think it'd be only 4 or 5, you know. It'd be one of the earliest memories when he brought me down.
So you were still in the 40s?
Holmes. Oh yeah. Born in 35, it'd be 5 or 6. And I often wondered about that girl. She went back to London, she'd be gone by now, but May Farley remembers her.
Right.
Yeah.
And what connection had she locally?
She used to come, Mick Butler and his wife lived where Dick Flaherty lives now, on the bend there.
Right.
The big galvanised
Yeah,
roof,
okay.
that was their house, and we were next door.
Oh, right.
And we just go through the garden from one to the other.
Right.
and Sheila Trett used to come. She was over visiting. I think Mrs. Butler might have been her aunt or something.
Right.
But she never came back after that. I never saw her anymore. Well, Butler's died out, you know.
Right.
And Rick Butler and Mrs. Butler were very old at that time, and they're long gone, you know.
Right.
And another man I remember was Tom Malone. He lived in a little house there at the Bullring.
Was there a very big family of Malones?
Well, not there. There would have been originally.
All right.
But he used to walk from the little house there. He worked in Lord Lightfoot's.
Right.
And they'd have to be in there at 6 in the morning feeding cattle or something. And then his wife or his mother would bring up food later on in the day. You know, they'd get it at 10:30 or 11.
That'd be the breakfast.
Yeah, yeah.
Difficult times.
Oh yeah. Malone's house was just the chimney in one end, the thatched cabin, I think just a kitchen and a room. And then
Right on the Bullring there, was it?
A big, what do they call it, settle bed in the kitchen, and that would be a bed, of course, at night.
Yeah.
Put it sitting up, then there was a bench for the day, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Mm. Right. I think there may have been a big family there.
Oh yeah, there would have been.
At one time, yeah.
He had loads of brothers, even alive then, you know, they're all gone. But Tom he was a great friend of my father's. He'd come down just for a chat. He'd sit there and have the tea. And he lived, well, he was on his own for a long time. Then his sister Mary, she'd be away working, and she came back there, and two of them were there to the end of their days.
Right, right.
I remember he died the first few months that I was in St. Vincent's College in '49.
Oh.
There was a bad flu, hit the area, hit the country that time. And I remember poor old Mrs. Shaw and Tom Malone and quite a lot of old people at the time, the flu hit them. All of the 5 or 6 people died that time.
Right, right. Locals.
Locally, from the flu.
Right. You were mentioned about your earliest memory of cars. You mentioned televisions earlier on. Who you know, initially the few cars in the village?
Well, Barney Gogarty, of course, had
the teacher.
A lovely car, yeah.
Right.
He'd be down to mass, and the wife always sat at the back.
Oh.
She never sat at the front of it for whatever reason. And Plunkett's had a car.
Oh.
And I think Paddy Forsyth, well, Tom Plunkett had drove it, I suppose, for a while, but then Paddy Forsyth used to drive them to mass, because the Plunketts were getting older. And Father Moore always had an old banger.
Had he,
yeah. The curate had always have a good car. Father Mooney, they all had good cars, but in the very beginning, Father Moore had a car and the doctor. But I think there was petrol rationing, you weren't allowed to have a car. Jim Toole, now married to my Aunt Bridget up in Paradise, he had a brand new Vauxhall car, and it ended up, he wouldn't be driving it very long, he had to put it in the shed and block up the wheels.
Right.
And it was stored there for a few years.
Oh.
And it kind of, it affected, you know, the years of laying up in that old damp shed. But I remember them getting it going again. The last man to own that car was Billy Mulvey at Summerhill.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he had it. Yeah. Ned Shannon, of course, had a car.
Right.
But they weren't allowed to drive them during the war years.
Right.
Only the doctor and the priest, I think, you'd see scooting about.
Right, right. Cars are blocked up, as you say.
Oh yeah. And the lorries then, they had these gas, they were running them on gas.
Mm.
He'd smell them for half an hour after the passenger by. Dailies on the lorry, he'd be buying pigs from all the farmers. And Richie Daly would come on the lorry, and he never done anything with the animals. He'd be tinkering with the old engine, keeping it going.
Right.
When he'd be in the yard, or when the pigs were loaded, he'd be as black as, he was as black as a blacksmith from all his time to keep the old yokes going.
Right.
Yeah.
The weighing scales that was down at the stores, do you remember any activity around that?
No, but I remember the scales being
Right.
there.
Right. The Haymarket trips weren't
That's right.
as popular in your youth.
Yeah,
either.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
We go to school, you'd meet them. Heading
Oh,
over
would
the
you?
road.
Yeah. You
Oh
would.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bill White and
A convoy of carts.
Sean Mahon's father, what was his name?
Paddy, was it?
No. He'd be on it, and Jim Gay from Dalestown. He'd have two, a horse tied behind. He'd have two horses and 2 loads of hay.
Yeah.
Oh, there was some of them from the Dangan area, Bill White and them. They'd be the same. And they'd be walking with the horses going by here. How far they used to walk, I don't know, but you'd see them in the old lorries coming back, or in the carts coming back then. They'd be laying in the rest of themselves. And the next day you'd see them.
And how many hours would that take now to go to the
I don't
Haymarket?
know. They used to go, they'd be going there and we go to school.
Right.
And before it. And then when they go up to the Haymarket, there'd be dairy farmers there from around Dublin. And they might buy the load of hay, they'd have to go out there and deliver it most times.
I see, wow.
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
Difficult times.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot of money.
No. I used to see that time too. Barry's a Dangan, they had a tractor and trailer, and their cattle would be, you'd meet the old tractor and trailer with a load of cattle. They'd be going up to the market in Dublin for Wednesday. And there was another family down there who used to drive the cattle too, where Doyle's is now. They had a lot of cattle, and they had a tractor and trailer going to Dublin too.
Right.
Christy Ryan's father, Jack Ryan, now would drive
Right.
to Dublin with the cattle for Barry's.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Is there any, we've got a lot of information out here, Paddy, and we're very grateful. Is there any kind of standout thing in your mind? You've probably told us already, something special that good or bad or pleasant or unpleasant that you can think of?
Oh, I don't think so.
You've covered pretty much everything anyway.
I remember we went to the big commemoration in Tara. It was 19. I don't know what the commemoration was for, but it was a really big commemoration, an army kind of thing. I remember it was the first time I saw Devil Era. And
Was it to do with 1798 or
I
something?
think so.
Yeah.
And like the year then, it could be 19, it had to be somewhere 46, 7 or 8. 45. I know Jimmy Flynn brought us, and he had the car.
Right.
He had his car, and he brought my father and myself. There was some, maybe Noel, but there was big army displays. It was a huge pageant altogether. And of course the first time I'd been there, but I remember Devil Era.
Right.
I was watching out for him.
Right.
I used to read the papers. I'd always great interest in politics.
All right.
And
Did he make a speech that
oh, he
day?
did, yeah. Yeah, big speech. And other celebrities as well, but Dev sticks out in my mind.
Oh, of course, and the very height of him.
Oh yeah, well, I was a good bit away.
You wouldn't
He
miss
was
him.
up at a big platform.
Yeah.
What he was on about, I haven't a clue now, but big crowds, huge crowds, and great spectacle. Because it was the first of that I ever seen, you know.
Yeah.
And then he always went to Dublin. I was up there at the 50th, I think it was the 50th commemoration of the 1916.
Of course, yeah.
And I was up there for that.
Right.
I'd go to all that. I'd go to the St. Patrick's Day parades every year.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that, of course, to be new ministers and maybe even new Taoiseach.
Oh yeah, I remember
on display.
I noticed that 50th one, Fianna Fáil would be in power.
Yes.
And the whole row of the front were every one of them.
Right.
There wasn't a sign of a Fine Gael man or a Labour man.
Yeah.
I don't think they let them in.
I think they weren't invited.
No.
Yeah.
But it was quite different this time. I think they were all invited.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Which is only right.
And the last year, were you up last year?
No.
No.
No, I looked at it on telly.
Yeah, well, you got better views from the telly. Yeah.
But, oh yeah, I used to love the parades, and I'd go up here about 11 o'clock, park the old car anywhere and walk in there and put up high. But I did it for years, and then I went to the Metropole. I used to love the old long bar of the Metropole.
Right.
I knew all the waiters in there,
Right.
and have a few drinks there and a couple of sandwiches and out to the old car and home then, and I was happy.
Of course, yeah. Nice way to spend your afternoon.
Yeah.
Paddy, that's a brilliant piece of history you brought us through, and much appreciated. No, it's brilliant because your recollection is unique. There's, you know, everyone's is, and yours is special.
Well, I suppose I could do it better if I got it together a bit more, but maybe not.
No, it was fine. It was fine. It's your story, and it's brilliant. No, it's great recollection. Thanks very much, Paddy. That's 100%.